This is Drive with Adam Shand.
25 minutes to 4 o'clock. Now, we were talking about the Melbourne Cup, whether there should be a holiday or not. Why have you stopped ringing? Have you all gone off on holiday or something? I want to talk to you today. If I have to work, you have to work. Give me a call on 9221 882. In the meantime, we talked about skin cancer, and I'll bring it up regularly until I go on holidays in mid-December, because we need to talk about it, because we have the highest incidence of skin cancer in the world. And I walk around this city and I see people in shorts, people in short-sleeve shirts, people with no hats. For instance, I wear a hat all the time now, only because I got a big skin cancer on my head. Had to learn the hard way. And I'm just surprised when you look at photographs from back in the 40s and things, and every single person has a hat on, you know, and you think, what did they know that we suddenly forgot? And that we're suddenly being reminded by these very nasty skin cancers we're getting. We were talking about skin cancer the other day, and I was speaking to a lovely caller called Karen, who I really rudely cut off, I have to say, because it was actually Chris's fault. It was Chris's fault, because the news was coming up, and I had to go, and I had to really crash out of the call, and I'm very sorry. But Karen is not just Karen, she's Karen-Ong. And she's written the #1 guide to preventing skin cancer. She's a Perth local lady, and she's screened more than 20,000 people. And she's about to give me a personal screening on air as we speak. So it's saved me going down to the clinic. And Karen joins me now. Good afternoon, Karen.
Hello there. How are you? Nice to see you.
You're speaking to the mic, that's right.
I better do that.
That's all right.
I'm not used to speaking into mics.
That's it. And sorry for cutting you off the other day.
That's not a problem.
Yeah,
I honestly, Adam, when I rang in, it was just to say, look, this book's available,
Yeah.
and next minute I was speaking to you, so I didn't expect to be speaking
I can
to
hear
you.
thousands of people saying, he always cuts people off. Give it to him. He deserves it. You know, well, I'm sorry for all those people too.
Well,
but
sorry as well.
You know, I'm not really sorry, but I'm just trying to, anyway, I'm sorry.
Trying to
But
sweeten things up.
Indeed. So listen, you've written this book. What's the aim of it?
The aim is actually to reverse the rates of skin cancer, particularly in Australia. In WA, we obviously have got one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world. The death rates from melanoma continues to be steady, and the amount of skin cancer that we actually know about is just the tip of the iceberg. So it's really to answer a lot of questions that people ask me that I... when I'm out there doing skin cancer screening in the workplace, I have an organisation called Spot Screen. We go into the workplaces.
I see.
So I'm seeing thousands and thousands of people every year, and this book is actually answering the most common questions that get asked of me, or the most common misinformation that people have about skin cancer.
So you go into workplaces and you do screenings.
That's
and I guess people say, oh, I'm fine, no problem at all. I've got this little spot here. And you go like, How often do you find things?
Too often. Our average referral rate is about 20%, 20 to 25% of people that we screen will have a lesion that's dangerous, and that needs to be investigated by their doctor. We do get people that say, look, there's nothing wrong with me, everything's fine. They get dressed down to underwear, and unfortunately everything isn't fine. There's usually a melanoma hidden somewhere on the body that they aren't aware of, or they might have another type of skin cancer, and they're the skin cancers that people often overlook because they're looking for a mole, they're looking for something that's dark or looking dangerous on their skin, but they're not looking at things that are innocuous, like
what? Give me an
like
example.
a sore that doesn't heal, for example. Often people will have little scaly, scabby sores on their arms, and they'll say, look, it's just from the ageing process, but in fact they can be squamous cell carcinoma.
Or basal cell carcinoma.
Or basal cell.
Or atypical fibroxanthoma.
That's the one.
I just had a little pimple on my head, which was there for a few months. I thought, that's not going away. And got it checked, and they said, let's chop it off today if they could.
Exactly. So you just don't know, and often people will think, look, I've just got a little pimple, or I've got a sore on my nose, and it's there because my glasses keep rubbing on it, which is very common. And often there'll be, basal cell cancers, or carcinomas as we call them, that have been growing for years. So the unfortunate thing about them is what's on the surface is also going on below the surface, so we don't know if they're going to infiltrate, and even basal cell carcinoma can do that, and that's something that people aren't aware of, unfortunately.
Yeah, because people do die from those BCC and SCCs, don't they?
They
regularly.
do. They do. In fact, about 600 people a year will die.
That's right.
And that's not really common knowledge.
And it's unnecessary. Melanoma is scary enough, but why make something that's not as major into something awful by not getting it treated? That's crazy.
Right. That's
now, I would strip down to the underpants for you to give me a bit of an examination there, but there are callers to talk to, so we might do that later on. Michael is in. Listen, if you have any questions about preventing skin cancer, this is the time to call, because it might just save you that worry, concern, and actually get you to make a call to go and get checked, because this could add years to your life. If you don't do it, it might take years off. So give us a call on 92211 882, and Karen Ong will take your calls. Michael's in Kelmscott. Hi, Michael.
G'day, Adam. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of knowledge about squamous cell carcinomas. I'm 60 years of age, and back when I was a young 17-year-old, there was never such thing as slip, slop, slap, or, you never put sunscreen on. You used to go down to Roto and get burnt to a toast, and just lie on the bed and suffer. But the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've had 64 at a size of a 10-cent piece, I suppose, that wouldn't heal on the top of my head. Well, that ended up being 64 stitches.
Was that melanoma or squamous?
No, it was a squamous cell carcinoma.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Then I had one on my ear, which was cut off. That was 4 or 5 stitches. And now I've got 5 stitches in my neck, still from another one that was just cut off recently. So, yeah, even though they look tiny, by the time the doctors finish cutting the lad, you end up with quite a chunk. It can be quite...
Right. Yeah.
And I guess the thing for you, Michael, is that when they start to turn that way, a lot of them go. Is that right, Karen, that you get this effect of if you have one, you get more?
The reason, often people will say to me, hello, Michael, by the way, nice to talk to you. Often people will say, look, I'm going to get this one cut out and it's just going to give me more. That's not correct. What happens is that the damage that you've been doing, particularly when we used to go out and lay on the beach and, like a sausage on a barbecue, we'd just keep turning ourselves and we're actually doing a lot of damage then. But
the old Hawaiian tropic oil and things, things we used to do.
The coconut oil and, you'd actually hear yourself crackling and popping on the beach. But what happens is that from that time, or not even from that time, from the minute we're going out in the sun, we're putting like UV into our skin, which is damaging those cells. So it's a collective and accumulated effect that goes on, until one day your skin's had enough and then you'll spring up with these skin cancers. So that's why generally, particularly with the basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma, once you've got to 2, you'll generally keep getting them. So that's your body telling you, or your skin telling you, that you've had too much UVR exposure and now it's going to pay you back with interest in all that damage that you've accumulated.
We pay for the things in our youth that we enjoyed, I'm afraid, Michael. So I guess you've got to keep going and keep getting them cut out, but it's better than croaking it, isn't it?
Yeah, can I add there, though, Michael, now that you've had them, it's really important that you go to your doctor and get your skin checked professionally every year. And what I would also recommend that you do is to check your own skin from head to toe. And particularly with melanomas, you can get melanomas between your toe, under your foot. You can get them in areas that have never seen the daylight. So with melanoma, about 10 to 15% of them will come up on areas of the body that aren't exposed to daylight. Simply, it's bad luck, unfortunately. If you have a genetic connection with melanoma, so anyone in your first line bloodline family, then that increases your risk by about 7 times. It's quite significant.
Yeah, well, my father's currently in hospital at the moment, and he's got a cancer on his neck. He's 87, and he's not looking too good.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Michael. Is that melanoma? Do you know?
No, I think that was a sore that just didn't heal and just got larger, and they cut it out and they've done a skin graft. But being 87, he's just been admitted back into hospital.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, and unfortunately, it's.
What about your kids, Michael? Are you on to them about sunscreen and so forth?
I'm always on to my son. On to my son. He's like me. He's as bald as a badger. We lost hair, I think, at 20. He shaves his head, and I keep telling him to put a hat on and, be careful.
Can I add there, apart from skin cancer with men, exposure to UVR actually and a lot of heat will damage the hair follicles. So it increases the risk of baldness. So wearing a hat, and particularly something that's got a a band around, like just above your ears. So caps are useless. Throw them in the bin, guys. They're completely and utterly useless. So get yourself a really good wide brim hat. There's heaps on the market now. A lot of
Maybe
guys say
balaclava with the answer in the wet weather here.
I would say so.
Michael, thank you for your call. Appreciate that, and best of luck with it. Tony is in Mandurah. G'day, Tony.
Yeah, how you going?
Thanks.
I've been to the skin clinic up there, several times now.
Great.
And every time I go in there, they keep telling me, no, it's all right, and they keep cutting the bloody thing out.
What are they cutting out?
They reckon it's a sunspot.
Okay.
So within a couple of months, it scabs up again.
Are they cutting it out, or are they scraping it off, or are they freezing it, or they're scraping it?
Yes.
Okay. Has anyone ever done a biopsy of that for you?
No.
Okay. If it's still there, obviously something's causing it. So whatever the treatment is that you're currently on, if that's scraping it off, obviously it's not getting deep enough down into the surface, under the skin, because what you've got, if they're not getting down to the point where those cells are, the cells that are starting to get damaged, then it's always just going to keep reoccurring. So what you need to ask them for is a biopsy, and they'll take a little punch of a biopsy. What happens then is they'll send it off to a pathologist, and the pathologist will be able to tell you or tell the doctor exactly what cells are there. Now, it may be that if it's recurring, it might be a skin cancer rather than the sun damage or solar keratosis, which is a precancer. So they're treated differently.
To the doctors or the skin clinic?
Well, it really depends on, only about 22% of GPs have any formal qualifications in skin cancer medicine. So if you're going to a skin clinic and they have, qualified doctors that are doing it, then that's fine. If you're unsure, ring reception and just ask if any of them do have any certification in skin cancer medicine. And certainly if they do, they'll be able to help you. There are also GPs out there that have been working with skin cancer for years that don't have qualifications. So, they know what they're doing. But unfortunately, some GPs specialise in one area and some in another. So,
every time I go, once every 3 months, I come out looking like Mick Jagger.
Well, he attracts the chicks. He really attracts the chicks.
You've got the whole strut on and the whole bizarre. Yeah. Good on you, Tony.
Oh, you pull love.
Rocking out. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate that call. And we are talking to Karen Ong, who's written this brilliant book, The #1 Guide to Preventing Skin Cancer, proven advice from an expert. And the catchline here is celebrate life without the fear, which means go get checked. Or alternatively, give us a call and you can talk to Karen about your little symptoms, the things you're seeing there. Maybe you haven't had it checked. Maybe you're a bit worried about it. Give us a call, 92211 882.
Drive with Adam Shands.
It's 8 minutes to 4. We're talking to Karen Ong, who's written a book, The #1 Guide to Preventing Skin Cancer. And so if you have a question for Karen, give us a call on 92211 882. But I should ask you, Karen, you've had your own experience with skin cancer, so even the people in the know can still fall victim to it.
Yeah, when I was younger, and I think was it Michael who was saying earlier that he used to cook himself out on the beach, and unfortunately I did as well. And coming from a family, I'm the youngest of 8 children, and they were always out there on the beach. And unfortunately, we've had a huge melanoma history. My father, my sister, my brother.
Gee.
I've had the basal cell carcinoma, and it was before I actually knew what I know now. Unfortunately, I lost my brother to melanoma, and this is why I've got into working in workplaces. He was as a result of a workplace exposure to UVR. He was a truck driver and a scaffolder working up in the northwest, and unfortunately he was a blokey bloke and didn't want to hear people tell him that he had to get things checked. And so
such a common story amongst men. And I'm terribly sorry for your loss, but it's obviously driving you in your work though.
Well, it
to
is.
help other people.
Yeah, and it's not just my loss. I mean, it has such a ripple effect on the community, on his family, his children, his grandchildren, his workplace, his mates.
Yep.
So it's not just a one-person thing.
And it is preventable, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's take some calls now. Richard's in Beachborough. Hello, Richard.
Yeah, hi, guys. I know you're short for time. Listen, I've got 2 things. One is sunburn, a radiation burn, and also I knew a tennis coach. He used to cream himself up, in all the exposed skin areas, but he ended up having a dozen I think they were melanomas, but anyway, skin cancers cut from underneath where he used to wear his shirts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Unfortunately, back in the good old days, and it's only recent days that we've started to get 50 plus SPF clothing. So if you're not wearing clothing that has some sort of sun protection factor, then you will get burnt underneath, or you will be exposed to ultraviolet radiation through that shirt. And unfortunately, it does accumulate. And you're right, it is radiation. So whether it's coming from the sun or whether it's coming from X-rays, it's a different wavelength, but it's all radiation. So this sounds like that's what's happened to him. And obviously, being outdoors a lot, he would have had a lot of accumulated exposure over time. And unfortunately, this is why he's got dozens of. I would say that they're basal cell carcinomas. With melanoma, there's sort of a saying they don't hunt in packs. You tend to get one, and it's a very significant diagnosis.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that, Richard. Stephen's in Carlisle. G'day, Stephen.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Karen.
Yes. Hi, Richard.
Stephen, it is.
Sorry. Sorry,
hey,
Stephen.
Look, I suffer from psoriasis. Now, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, so just listen to me. When I get the opportunity, if he's not working, he will lay in the sun 15 minutes of the day in summertime with the sun at its zenith, which is directly overhead, front and back, probably 15 minutes total time. And it controls my psoriasis. But one thing that's a little bit concerning here is the fact that people are treating UV radiation as some sort of like carcinogen. What dosage rate or how much exposure per day would you allow that's going to be to be healthy? Because basically I hear stories of people that go out every day, they put sunscreen on the moment they get contact with the sunlight. I'm sorry, that's just after 4.5 billion years of evolution, that's something's not right. I cannot believe all radiation is
good question, Stephen.
That's a very good question. I've got a whole chapter in my book about that very subject. What you're talking about there is, again, we're talking about accumulated UVR. Now, depending on what time of the year you are going out. Okay, I'll start from scratch here. At different times of the year, the UV level, so the amount of radiation that the Earth is getting, will be experienced slightly different. So in winter, we're getting a little bit less UVR. Now, remember, we're living in where we're living. So if you have white skin and you're living in the southern hemisphere, you're in the wrong place. Our skin,
let's move, Steve.
You have to go back up to England. Our skin
Sweden,
was
maybe.
developed, so we had only very short bursts of UVR up in, let's say we're living in Scotland or England, get out there for 10, 15 minutes at tops in their summer, which, the UVR is probably down to about 5 or 7. In Australia, it's up to 10 to 14. So that means the amount of UVR your skin is exposed to, given in 1 minute, is going to be a lot more in Australia than it's going to be in England. So there's a whole mathematical equation to what you're talking about here, Stephen. And it's not, often I get asked that question, well, we're supposed to be out in the sun. Yes, we are, but not for the amount of time that we are. So, again, you'll probably have to read that chapter in the book.
Good, indeed. Thank you for the call, the question, Stephen. That's all we have. I'm going to have to cut you off again. I'm really sorry, but it's been Karen Ong.
I'm getting used to it.
Fantastic book, the #1 guide to preventing skin cancer. Have a look at it. It could save your life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam, and all the best to everybody out there.
Thanks so much. And
Cheers.
It's 3 minutes to 4.